Partner, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, please. Seeing none, we do not have any delegations per se, but I will ask Mr. Elliott to give some opening remarks, and then we'll move to the specific item. Mr. Elliott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of Audit Committee. Thank you, Mike. Mr. Mayor, members of Audit Committee, thank you. This is, as a professional accountant, this is one of my most exciting nights of the year. Inside joke. This presentation tonight was originally scheduled for 6:30 this evening, so we shortened it up. It is still short, and we encourage you to have lots of questions for our guests. Giselle and Andrea have been working with us now for, I think this is our 6th year, and we're looking forward to, 5 years, and we're looking forward to another 5 years. We have renewed that. And so Giselle and Andrea are going to share with you two things within the same agenda. First is the results of the audit for 2017 and their findings, and then statutorily they also need to speak with you briefly about their plan for next year. And so when we get to questions, perhaps we can separate those two and focus just on the audit first and then to the plan. Mr. Chair, I'll ask Giselle and Andrea to come forward.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Is this on? Yep. Sorry, I was fighting some laryngitis and I have 4 presentations this week. We're just going to first look at the results of the town. And again, I'm giving you some visual reports because visual speaks 1,000 words. So as you can see, the first report we're giving you is the total revenue and what your surplus is and your total expenses. So the blue line is the revenue, the red is the expenses, and the green is your surplus. So, you know, most municipalities are a break even. You collect the money from the taxpayers. So technically, you shouldn't have a surplus, right? But your surplus is used to buy capital assets. So a long time ago, municipalities used to just expense their capital assets, and they didn't have any surplus. Money came in, wrote it off. But now under the new PSAB requirements in the last, I don't know, was it 6 years, Dan? 5 or 6 years, you have to capitalize your assets. So just go to the next report there. So this report says, well, what was your surplus and how much money did you spend on the assets? And you'll see that the blue line every year is still higher than the red line. So again, healthy municipality, accumulating more cash surpluses. So if you go to the next chart, so what's happening to your net financial assets, which is really your cash less all the debt that you owe. So you can see that your net financial assets is almost up to 81 million. Now some municipalities are in the negative because they've gone out and spent 100 million on assets, so they go into the hole and then come back to break even. Usually with a growing municipality, you know, you're creating a lot of reserves and a lot of assets for the future. So again, a very healthy municipality from where we look at things. And again, if you look at your total surplus, you can see your total surplus that you've accumulated, and most of your surplus is sitting in your capital assets, with about 80 million in the cash. So the difference between the blue line and the red line is what's sitting in your cash minus your payables. Your revenue breakdown, again, we look at this just if you're a new council member, it's good to say, well, has anything changed from 5 years ago? Pretty much bang on from 5 years of how you get your revenue. And do you want to show the expenses? Expenses, again, have been growing, and you can see the trend. A lot more money spent in environmental protection because your municipality is growing. Then I look at what's the component of the expenses compared to they were in 2012, and again, exactly the same pie chart. So while you're spending more money, the percentages are pretty much the same, Dan, as before. Do you want to? I'll pass it over to you now, Andrea.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so we'll move on to our final report to the Audit Committee in regards to the status of the audit, which is that we have done our audit work up. We have to finish our audit work up to today, actually. We're kind of in a catch-22, chicken and the egg kind of situation. We have to report to you, and then we have to finish the audit. So that's the status of the audit. What we're waiting on is just basically to top up our audit work up to today. For our audit findings, we found no issues during the audit. And we, for our materiality, we had, it was the same as what I reported to you back in March, with $2,250,000, which is based on an average of 2% of revenues. We didn't find any internal control deficiencies. We had no unadjusted items. Any adjustments that needed to be made were made to the financial statements. In terms of fraud discussion, this presentation now is your opportunity to bring up any fraud concerns that you may have, and we'll open it up to questions at the end. Okay, which would be now. I should also mention that our audit opinion is the same for our audit report as in previous years, and it's a clean audit opinion. So I'll open up to any questions now.
Council, any comments, excuse me, at this point? Seeing none?
Okay, so
Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you for being here. Just to go back to, in general, the graphs that you presented, you made a comment that, in comparison to other municipalities that you see, you call this a healthy municipality. So from your perspective, by comparison, we're in a good financial position comparative to other municipalities you meet or see.
Yes. Now, you have to remember, you could have, if you go back to that graph, Andrea, or go forward, sorry, to the net debt. Yeah, net financial assets. So you see there's 81 million there. Now, again, you have to, if you're a healthy municipality, it's about what is your tangible capital asset plan. So if you told me, oh, we got to spend 500 million, then you're in the whole 400 million.
For sure.
So that has a lot to do with this.
I know it's not black and white, but in general, you see us in a good financial position.
For sure, compared to a lot of other municipalities, for sure.
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. You were talking about spending on environmental. Are you talking about infrastructure and environmental services?
Mr. Elliott?
The environmental services includes water, wastewater? And water, wastewater, storm activity, and our environmental program that's within the tax budget.
Thank you. The reason I ask is because the department is called Infrastructure and Environmental Services. So where is the infrastructure on here?
Mr. Elliott, do we break down by department?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's not broken down by department here. This is a historical reporting structure for our financial information return, I believe. You'll see transportation services, so that would be all of our roads and linear assets.
Okay.
With the exception of the undergrounds. The undergrounds would be in the environmental services.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions?
Audit, the December 31st, 2018. So it obviously it's a bit early to talk about that. But from our perspective, we don't see anything changing as opposed to 2017. We are going to go in with the same plan and update our system descriptions and update all the information that we normally get and see from there if there needs to be any changes. But as of now, we don't foresee any changes, and we would have our materiality as being the same.
Just I want to add that there's no really major PSAB changes, no really accounting changes this year. The CICA Institute of Chartered Accountants, they may be changing that we have to add more information on financial instruments.
That's a few years out.
It's a few years out, but it's going to be a little bit of a major change, especially if you have debt. You have to present value your debt based on the current rates. So if you have a $20 million loan and you got it at 3% and now the rate is 6%, you got to record that gain. Silly accounting, but you're still only going to pay back the $20 million. So that's the only change that's coming in the next couple of years. So the audit should be pretty straightforward.
Thank you. You did do a wonderful job of keeping that short. Council, are there any other questions on the presentation, please? Seeing none, may I please have a motion to receive and refer to the report? Councillor Tom, Councillor Perry, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Mr. Elliott will, first of all, we'll put the report on the floor. Someone put the report on the floor for me, please. Councillors Gartner and Maracas. Mr. Elliott, any comments to the report before we ask Council?
No, I think as the auditors have mentioned, it's a very clean report. They had no findings of shortcomings in our processes, in our adjustments or our recordings. And so I'm very proud of the team that I have working for me, and clearly I can't do it alone. So Jason and his team and Clayton and his team, both doing a great job for the organization. I like the idea that we're going to have a change in our financial instruments. I'm sure that I'll need 3 or 4 more staff to handle that change. So we'll talk about that in future budgets. But overall, I'm very proud of the team that I have and the results that we're producing and the financial health of the organization. And I'm proud to lead the organization as it is.
Thank you, Mr. Elliott. Council, any comments or questions on the report? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. Just for clarification, through you to Mr. Elliott. Dan, in the analysis on, I guess that's what, page 2, it says that the audited financial statements present a consolidation of the combined results of the town, the library board, wastewater, and so forth. In the past, the libraries had their own audit done. Was that done this time as well, or was that sort of combined in this process?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the library is audited by the same firm at the same time. We do the accounting and recording. All of their books are, call it in-house here. And so my staff stick handle their work for them, but they remain the work of the libraries for audited financial statement purposes. Yes, the library board chooses to have their own separate audit, and then we consolidate that operation into here because it's required under the accounting reporting rules. They're part of us. We're the significant funder of them, and from an organizational perspective, they are us, and so we roll it all in together. Bring in the building services section, bring in the water and sewer, so all of our operations under one hat are in these books.
Great. And then perhaps I should have asked it when they were at the podium, but have we seen the results of their audit yet, and whether there's any items of note?
My understanding is that the library board received their audit report last week, and everything, to my understanding, was clean, and certainly nothing in their books was affecting ours. And as it's the same team doing the 2 books, I'm certain that it was nice and clean as well.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan, I would appreciate having a breakdown at some point of environmental services. We spend more money on that than anything else, and I'd just like to know what the basket includes. Thank you.
We can do that certainly by email later this week.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and great. Thank you for the audit and great report, and great to hear in the financial health of town. And I know that we do this, but is there any way that we can actually communicate, like, the health of our town? I love. We do that. We do that, but actually in this format to the residents.
Well, it is public now. It's a public
public
document.
now, but I'm just saying, I'm saying a little more proactively than here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I know that I've attempted to report financial health a couple of times in the past. The challenge is in bringing the comparables to it are very delayed in getting them to my desk. We're certainly, here we are at the end of June with our audited financials. They become public domain shortly, then they get tied into other consolidated financial reporting through the province, and I don't see that until later in the fall, almost December, before I can sort of compare myself to Ajax and Newmarket and the likes. I'd love to be able to do that on a more timely basis, but it's very, very difficult.
Yeah, it's not easy.
I would love to, once that data is available, I'd love to bring forward a financial health report to the new council, and perhaps as part of the orientation.
Perfect. I think that's great. Thank you.
I'm going to go to the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the other thing that I'll add is that we will be doing our annual report, and we will make, well, not the same sort of statistical analysis, we will be making reference to the overall financial health of the corporation.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great news story, and residents need to hear it, so thank you.
Councilor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Elliott. Mr. Elliott, if we were to remove the hydro funds, would we be in the same healthy financial position as being presented to us?
Mr. Elliott.
Certainly it would be a different picture. Would it still be healthy? I believe it would still show healthy. The hydro funds certainly bolster our financial position, but until they are allocated, they're almost, we can't use them. They're not there for any specific purpose. They're not there for repair and replacement. They're not there for new capital. It's this ball of money that I can't say what it's for. And so it supports the financial statements, but in reality, I believe that we're healthy even without it when it comes to repair and replacement and our asset sustainability strategies. And as long as we stay on those strategies, I see that we've got a sustainable picture and a sustainable future.
Thank you.
Councilor Carter.
Thank you for the question. Where are the hydro funds reflected here?
Mr. Elliott.
Audited financials. You're going to see them on page 42 of 77. You'll see the portfolio investments on the top section of that table. A portfolio investments of $117 million compared to $112 million last year or the year prior. And then there's a note in note 4 of the financial statements describes a little bit more about what is in those and the portfolio investments, but unfortunately it doesn't draw out very specifically that it's the hydro money. Just in the nature of the reporting requirements of the accounting industry, we don't break them out separately like that.
Councillor.
Thank you. So could you help me here? So if we took out, I think there's about 32 now, not counting the money we're spending on the armory.
Yeah, perhaps 32, 33 million. I haven't got the number off the top of my head. If you take out the armory money.
So well, let's just say we took out the whole $36.5 million. How would that show here?
Mr. Elliott.
On that page 44, page 42, you would see the portfolio investments where it's 117. That number would fall. However, depending on how we use the money, if we're acquiring assets, then those assets would show up a little further down on that page on the non-financial assets, tangible capital assets. There's $453 million of assets that we own, and so we would essentially transfer it from one line to the other on that schedule. And overall, the financial health of the organization, we would still be a $500 million organization on the financial statement, on the balance sheet.
Councillor?
So at the end of the day, if we used all of those assets just to make it easier, do we actually have cash and investments that bring money in? Like, do we actually have something should we need, apart from our reserves?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have operating cash that is essentially, we've got a number of sources. There's the reserve balances that are unallocated. There is money that has been allocated to capital but has not been spent, and sometimes that's running $40 to $60 million at any one time. We also have cash that we have collected on behalf of the region, but we have not yet forwarded to the region, and so that is earning us interest, and likewise for the school board, and that's both taxes and development charges. So we have a lot of operating cash flowing through the organization, and at this point in time, I don't have any concerns that we're not sustainable from a cash flow perspective. But yes, absolutely, as we spend the hydro money, there is less interest being earned. But right now, that earned interest just goes back into the hydro money. And so it's not going to have a dramatic effect on the rest of the organization. Our operating budget has $1.6 million of interest coming into it. That might be somewhat affected, but it's very difficult to predict just how much an impact that would have.
Thank you. Just to make sure I understand, though, so the three things you mentioned in the beginning, the reserves, the money we owe to the region, and I forget what the third thing was. That's money that's basically spoken for. So can we really count that?
There's also all of the cash that we collect on our own basis to support our operation. There's a number of other reserves. We have our reserve fund statement shows that there's another $20 million of reserve funds over and above the hydro money, at least 20. I haven't got the number off the top of my head. And it's significant enough that, again, I don't see that we have a cash crunch. And when you think about, call it a household budget, if you've got $1 million in the bank and then you go out and you buy a $900,000 home, you still have the same wealth. You just have a smaller bank balance. And so it depends on just how small of a bank balance do you need to operate. And at this point in time, I don't see that we're in jeopardy. And we will continue to monitor that as we go forward.
Thank you very much.
And Council, if you look at page 55 to 77, there is an actual number for the hydro fund, which is $36,891,000. Seeing no further comments or questions, all in favor of receipt, please. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much. Confirming by law? No, just adjourn. Motion to adjourn, please. Councillors Peary and Tom, all in favor. Opposed? That is carried. You have 19 minutes.